Live here. Oh, we're live. There we go. I was like, every time I start saying we're going to go live here in a moment, it goes live. And I'm like, oh, look, I'm talking about it. There we go. All right. Hello, you guys. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the TUF Woman Table. As you come in and say, hey, let us know where you're coming from. If you are over on YouTube, say, hey, this is a live conversation. So a live vlogcast, podcast, whatever you want to call it. So as you guys come in, say, hey, make sure you comment. How are you doing this evening, morning? I don't know what it is where you're at. Oh, 1 second. There we go. That's a little bit better. Sorry, you guys. Echoing, real life stuff happens here. All right. So you guys, welcome to the TUF Woman Table. I know you haven't seen my face, well, in this thing in a while, but we have been geared over into bringing the TUF Woman Table TV show to now 3 platforms. Just found out we got put onto Apple TV as well. So we are now on Apple TV, Amazon TV, and Roku. So I am extremely excited about that. Yeah, I know. I'm like, I got to take more time out to like celebrate that. Like, woo!
Totally.
And the website just dropped, you guys, to www.tufwoman.com. I just updated some deets on my social media. So please make sure to check that out. That lets you know all about the show. It's going to start telling you here very soon about where it's broadcasting, when it's broadcasting. So please make sure to check that out. And yeah, let us know your thoughts. Please make sure you come in, comment. Oh, Elizabeth says, hello, ladies. Oh, I'm so happy you're here, Elizabeth. Speaking of Elizabeth, I am getting ready to edit your show, Elizabeth. Elizabeth was a guest on TUF Woman Table TV show episode 4. So her episode is getting ready to get edited soon. So very excited. But thank you guys for being here. I'm really excited to be able to do a story show. It has been a hot minute, and I'm really happy to have Margo on here. She has been a phenomenal wealth of knowledge for me, a tremendous help, and she's going to tell you a little bit about that here in a second. But if you guys feel called to do so, please make sure you share. Again, as I said, comment, join in on the conversation. This table is just as much yours as it is ours. So all comments will be brought here, and we will answer any questions you may have. So without further ado, I'm going to drop into my intro, and then I'm going to introduce my awesome guest who goes by the CFO Solutions Queen. I'm going to let her tell you about here in a minute. So hello and welcome to the TUF Woman Table, you guys. I'm going to get my sound box. I'm going to get my sound box here very soon. All right. This is the table where I invite some super badass tough women like Margo here to take a seat, join in on the conversation, and share her amazing story. At TUF Woman, I believe that all women have the power within themselves to live an authentic life, free from fear, confident in who they are, and empowered as fuck to go after that life, whatever that looks like to them. Otherwise, I also view it as I believe all women can live a life where they are unafraid, unapologetic, and unfuckwithable. Whoop, whoop. All right. I share this belief by championing tough women who have walked through the fire, felt the fear, faced adversity, and kept pushing through it all. Women who now live the life they want as the woman they were created to be. Women who own their stories so other women can embrace and own theirs as well. Because as we all know, when you give yourself permission to own and share your story, you give someone else the same permission. So welcome to the table, Margo. Oh my gosh.
Thank you. So excited.
I know. Yeah, and I was going to tell you, you look so pretty tonight.
Thank you. You too.
Yeah, blue on you. All right, so I'm going to let it switch over to you and tell everybody a little bit about what a CFO Solutions Queen is, and what it is that you do and who you serve.
So a CFO Solutions Queen is a professional accountant that helps you with solutions that you have never thought of. Ever feel like as a business owner that you have so many things going on and you just have no idea what to do? Or like you dig into all these solutions of like Google, Amazon, and all these different things, but nothing really works. So what I bring to the table is solutions that really make your business work outside of the box to really bring you the cutting edge of technology. I'm also a mom of 2. My oldest is 17, my daughter is 14, and they've been a big part of my journey. And they really have been, part of the business along with this, helping with a lot of the things behind the scenes.
And Tisha says, money. Money. Yeah, I know the feeling. I've had my son when I got the green screen that's behind me. My son was the first one to help me take it out and put it up because he wanted to play with it. But it's, I think it's really important for them to see stuff like that. It's important for them to see like what it takes to build something like this because it's not easy at all. And in my opinion, I think it's beautiful too because it teaches them their own work ethic. If they see their mom and like parents doing it, I feel like that really resonates over to them. And they're like, okay, well, this is what it takes to do this. And I always like to tell my daughter too, it shows you that it's not impossible. Like if we can create something out of absolutely nothing, you know what I mean? I mean, the sky is the limit. So I like your.
Both my kids have businesses as well. So it's like what you said. It's by what you model. My son does technology and my daughter does a lot of design. So, it's building the impossible and they see it. And it's really just such an amazing thing to share with them.
Oh, that's awesome. That's so cool. I always like hearing that, like when the kids start doing it. So, and it's cool because my son is 9 and he's already started talking about he wants to have a YouTube channel and he wants
nice.
And he wants to sell merchandise and stuff. So he's like, we gotta set up our YouTube studio, Mom, and then I'm gonna sell merch.
I love it. I can't wait to buy from him.
I know. He's gonna do a gaming channel. We're gonna get there. All right. So your story starts out as one woman's mission to make accounting sexy, which if anybody out there is like me and you mention numbers, I'm like, oh my God, please don't. Please don't. So all right, this is the fun part of the show. So tell us, what is the story behind one woman's mission to making accounting sexy?
So every time I would talk to people, they would just like yawn and they would look the other way or they would just ignore and, all sorts of things like that. And people also have this belief that an accountant is boring and not the first person on their list. And it's kind of like that typical picture that you see of an accountant where they have like piles and piles of paper and you can never get in touch with them. And people are just not wanting to be around that. And I just felt like as an entrepreneur that there was a better way. I also, as growing up, I also saw that people were really struggling with numbers. And for me, my family didn't have money. Money was really hard. My family was paycheck to paycheck. My father would work at night. My mom worked during the day to save money. And I didn't like that. I was like, there has to be another way. The value of $1 has to be better than that. And I used to think that you had to do all these sorts of things to be with the cool kids if your parents didn't have money, but it just didn't work. And then as I got older and I didn't like how people were responding to accounting, I was like, there's so many analogies and comparisons that you can make accounting fun, especially when it's your life and your vision and you want something, let's make it fun. So for me, when I work with clients, I love to make it innovative. I love to make it different so that people can look at their life. And I'll give you a for instance. I was talking to a client yesterday and they were remembering the time of when they first signed on with us. And they said how looking at numbers from when they were a kid were really hard. So because math was hard for them, they associated it the same thing. Now he tells me when he looks at his numbers, he feels he can come home with more money because he gets to make the decision of where his money goes. So if he wants to spend on lunch, if he wants to spend on something for his business. So it's like, if he's not in the mood to invest back into his business and he could come home with more money, he feels his time is more valuable and he's coming home with more money. Excuse me. And I mean, what better than that? So when you think about how sexy numbers it is, because you're coming home with the money, you're increasing your profit and it makes it so fun.
Yeah, nothing more fun than bring home more money. There's nothing more fun than that. It says, my teacher professor said if you can count, you can do accounting. Is it like, for me, I resonate with the math part because I always, and we have that conversation. It took me 2 years to do accounting, to do algebra 1. Okay. Like, so you're talking about like the master of math struggles. So when you talk about making it fun, let's talk about this for a minute. What is like some of the key things that helps people to really understand that accounting is incredibly beneficial in bookkeeping? Because something that you said is like most people don't recognize that in the beginning of business, that's important. And I actually had that conversation with a lawyer friend of mine, and she's like, people don't see that the legal aspect and then the bookkeeping aspect are so important to their business, especially when they start. So I guess it's a 2-part question. Like, how important is it, especially when you're starting in business? Mm-hmm. And how is it that you get people to start incorporating that in a way that works for them, so it's not working against them?
So the how is really when they see that they're losing money just by being irresponsible. And until it really relates to their life, does it really make an impact? So for instance, I had this real estate client that I was working with for a long time, and he wasn't looking at the bank fees. And every Monday he would have this process for him. And the process was that we would reconcile everything on a Monday. If it took 6 hours, 12 hours, 15 hours, he just wanted to deal with it once a week, and he'll pay me whatever I wanted to just do it the once a week. I had a conversation with him, and I showed him how much that process was costing him versus doing it in a step-by-step process of like 2 or 3 different times. And he saw that he was trying to do other things in business and the money was there already. So lots of times when you look at things, you realize that the money is there already with what you're making. That's what becomes sexy, because it's like, you're like, I did it already. So you feel good about yourself. You feel powerful. You feel confident, and you feel like you can build those dreams and all those things that you want for your business. Now, clients don't really take to that at first because they have to feel secure to talk to you and to share about that too. But once you start to talk about it and you really dip into that, what you want is on the other side of that fear. When you're on the side of the fear, nothing is going to change. But nothing feels better than when you step onto the other side and you break through that, because and I keep bringing it back to coming home to more money, because everyone says, I don't have money, I don't have money, I don't have money, or you have that scarcity mindset. It's not about that. It's like a default or in our subconscious where that's what we're built to say, versus kind of like, no, I'm going to talk to that younger child part of myself, and I'm going to say, I can do it, and come out on the other side more successful. So the how is recognizing it. And the sexy part is really letting your body flow into it to really make that breakthrough.
So one thing before I get to the other fun question. So in the beginning, this is something, again, back to that question about why don't most entrepreneurs utilize this? And this is not something that I was taught about. I'd like your thoughts on why we don't talk more about implementing bookkeeping and services like those legal services in the beginning of our entrepreneurial journey, because to me, that's not something I've seen widespread, especially in like the service-based industry. There is no, like, especially if you go get like a coaching certification, it blows my mind how many coaching certifications, like, okay, we're going to help you build a coaching business, but there's no talk about legalizing your business. What does it look like to create an LLC? Why is bookkeeping or accounting, like even knowing basics, important? So why do you think that this is not as widely talked about, especially when people are just beginning businesses? Because if you look at corporations and other like brick and mortar, the first steps into creating something like that is getting legal, getting like accounting services, getting a business plan. So why do you think that's not the conversation we're having in the online, especially like service-based industry?
Because that's the taboo part. Why don't people talk about it is because they're so worried about making money. They're not worried about tracking money. It's not a human behavior to track what you're spending because people think, oh, I'm entitled. I should be able to. And they turn on that card. So they don't think that they have to. They think it's like a choice. But until something happens, do they really turn that on and be able to? So we actually are taught to worry about income. We're not, I personally think that it's not out there because people are embarrassed to talk about what they spend and not really say outright like, hey, that's not the coolest. People it's almost like sitting with the cool kids versus not sitting with the cool kids, or not having that jacket to sit with the cool kids that everybody has. It's like nobody wants to say that they can't spend it or say it in a different frame of like, that's not what I'm up to right now. I want to spend on bigger things. It's not for monumental reasons in business, nothing more than people just feel like ashamed that it will automatically put people into this bucket. But that's actually what my course is about, is helping people formulate that on the right entity and being able to have these steps in the processes, because that's where the mistakes are. And that is the gap in the market, is that, the lawyers just tell you, hey, just open up an LLC. An LLC is the least protection. For many years, I had that. And then when I got a hold of taxes from a higher level, that I was able to do an S Corp election, I was able to save from my first round $12,000. Now, the person who I hired to do that with, my old mindset was like, oh my God, I think it was like $1,500. And we're like, oh, we can't pay to do things. And that's another thing, is that people don't want to pay for these services. They feel like, do it myself, do it myself, do it myself. But people have genius zones for a reason. And I call it a genius zone for specialties because I do accounting, so that's my specialty. And I call myself a CFO because not everyone could be a CFO. It's exactly what you said before about the coaches as well. There's hundreds and hundreds of programs about being a coach, but nobody's going to tell you about all these things in accounting that really is what makes the business succeed. I mean, you can have $100,000 business and somebody can have $250,000 business, and you can come home with the same profit. And I'll tell you, this year in COVID, I made higher profit with less projects because I was able to manage my expenses from such a dialed in way. And especially with not traveling anymore right now, I was really able to come home with more money. But I already stepped through that fear. So the first step is similar to what we talked about before, is recognizing it. And it's okay to share the unknown and having that conversation, because it gives other people the chance as well.
I love that. Yeah, that was something that, again, that I had that conversation around. It's like that was something that was really freeing for me too, was actually talking to someone about my finances and really starting to like break down into a budget. And it was amazing because I was like, man, this person is going to come back and tell me that I'm probably spending like a ridiculous amount of money on this. And it's like, actually, she's like, no, you're not bad at all. She's like,
why should you be ashamed about what you spend? You're allowed, it's your decision. And that's exactly why these things happen, is because people are ashamed about it and not proud. If you're ashamed about it, what's the best part about that is that you'll be on the other side of that for the next time. And that brought you the information to make that for the next time even better.
All right. So we're going to take a little diversion, and I want you to tell people a little bit about the story about how you started your business. Because I know you have a little bit of like a catalyst way of how you got into it. And I think it's always important, again, to go back to that whole being able to create something, especially kind of when your back is against the proverbial wall, essentially. So tell everybody a little bit about your story, about what it is that got you into creating your own business.
So at the beginning, it was really it came to this one day. I was in college and I saw an ad where a famous designer was looking for a bookkeeper. I always had passion for numbers, and my older sister also had a passion for numbers, and she was already an accountant. And the typical realm was to be in a CPA firm, to get your CPA and all these different things. But it just really wasn't resonating with me, and it wasn't something I was looking forward to. So I thought about this job, and when I did go for the job, he actually said yes. So Joseph Abboud is a famous designer, and I was like, why would this guy like me? I was like my third year of college, and I was like, he probably can get better people out there. And they said all those sorts of negative things. It's just started to empower me about what I had was really wanted. And he aligned with a lot of the things that I was putting out there. And it was just like one thing led into another that I fell into it. And when I finished college and I had my kids, I did not want to work out there while I was raising them. And I say it that way because, I remember as a kid how hard my parents worked and how hard they worked to be around for us too and to give us everything. And I just kept telling myself, I was like, there got to be a better way. So falling into entrepreneurship, it's like, it just what happened for me. And one thing led into another. And at the beginning, I used to tell people I was, a mom and I just had my baby, and people loved it. And it was true. It was authentic. And it just one thing led into the other. But the main thing that led me into accounting was that helping people with the accounting jargon, similar that we were talking about before, which was people thinking like that math, because that they were bad at childhood, they're associating that they can't look at their numbers in business. But it's not true. So helping people relate to their life and all these things, it just was what led me there.
And one thing that I wrote down is like, key part being that I followed my vision in my heart and I built the business the way I saw fit. And so this to me is a really important thing to talk about, because this is something else I don't feel that is discussed so much, especially in the online space. We have a lot of people yelling at us. Aha, do it my way. I have this system, and we don't think about what it looks like to create a business that is ours. So what was the difference in creating a business that was completely yours versus sitting there and trying to follow somebody else's or a million other ways to build a business similar to what you're doing?
So I'm going to share this in a story sense. So when I started my business, big part of my marketing was SEO. And I was so proud of myself being able to do SEO because that was the way. And I was proud of myself also that I can pay for it finally, because originally when I started my business, I went to Google classes. I would put my kids to sleep, and either if I didn't have a babysitter, I would bring the carriage and I would sit there in the Google classes. So I was really proud of myself that I can do this. And it just wouldn't feel right after a while. I would want more things than what SEO can do. And the person said to me, like, these really harsh things of like, these people pay me more money. These people do this differently. And they follow the 7-step process, like exactly what you just said, yelling at you to do a certain way. And even with doing the certain way, it wasn't working. And I had a mentor who, or I mean, I guess it's more of like a coach, who really started to dip me into following my heart. And it was the best thing I ever did. Now, I'm recently divorced, and I would say my partner at the time was really not for other things that were outside the typical process. And I really took, I'm going to call it a huge chance by doing it, because I knew the closest person to me was not happy with my decision. And business took off because it was my voice. I hired a writer who was listening to my voice and taking it my way. And my way sounds like like strong, but my voice and what I wanted to put out there in the world, and people were responding, but also the clients that were coming to me were responding in a way of that we were alignment. And ever feel like when you have a process, like you're like 2.5, you're not part of step 2 or step 3, but you really can create your own step 2 instead of feeling like you're 2.5, or like, you're in between sizes, like a size 7 and not the 6 or the 8. And when I just started to listen to my heart and get out of my head and be like, oh, I think this is better, let's do it that way, things just started to flow, the creativity. And I was excited about the work. And the clients that I was working with, like, we were having fun. It wasn't like in this box of like this strict method of ways to be. And it just wouldn't work that way. And I was also sick of not seeing people get successful. Like people are like, oh, you're getting paid, what's the difference? But it wasn't about that for me. It was more about the purpose and my passion. And that's what brought me the money that I don't want to say I don't have to worry about money, because everybody worries about money in some sort of way. But when you're connected to your passion and your purpose, that's really, there's nothing better. So, going through your heart and not your head, and actually listening. And also, if something happens, that's information. It's not a failure. Right away, we're taught to believe that it's a failure. And I would be constantly feeling like all those failures were piling on and piling on. So what would happen? I would have like these feelings of like pain and constant, like just bad thoughts. And inside I was, just broken. But as I started to, I'm happy and out there, and it's like, I'm proud of how I help clients, and people respond to it. And there's nothing better. And if you're out there listening to this, if you want to do something, it's that fear. You just take that one step. And if you do a 1% change in your business every month, that's 12% a year. So it's like you get to look at 2020, and now you still have October, November, and December. You just make one change. A little bit goes a long way. And you get to look and be like, I did that. And there's nothing better.
I know that's true. And hold on, there is some, I think Shell said she was literally building a course around this, and I think we were discussing the dynamics and the energetics of fear around money. And then Tisha said, this is so true. And then Michelle said, I love that you touched on the shame that comes into play in regards to sharing the financial aspect of a business with an outside source. Yeah, I think that's, it's interesting. It goes back to the programming, I think, that we hear, like you said, when we're growing up. I remember always hearing that there are 3 things that you didn't talk about in polite society, and that was sex, politics, and money. Or it was like religion. It was 4 things, maybe. It was like sex, religion, politics, and money. You never discussed money. And I remember this coach asking, I was doing like a mastermind I had gotten into. Excuse me. And it was, he said, okay, well, who taught you how to budget? And everybody on the call was like, nobody. Who talked to you about money? No one. What were the stories you saw around money? And I remember going in, and I had like, he was like, just write them all down. And I remember going and I'm writing down. It's like, there's never enough. We don't even live paycheck to paycheck. You have to wait till a holiday to get this. Like, there were all these stories. And then I started looking at my own like dialogue with my kids and stuff. And I was like, oh my God, like I just took them and I grew up with them and I utilized, it's like you literally just put them in there. So it's amazing. Again, touching on like what you said, Michelle said, we really hide a lot of, we take in a lot of shame. We're told, you can have anything you want in the world, but feel like shit if you want to have a lot of money and be successful. Like, you feel like a shitty person if you want to be like, it's almost like they're telling you, you deserve this much, but not this much. And if you go past this line, you need to feel bad about yourself.
I mean, it's like, why can't you take it to a different level and shift that mindset when something happens, so that you can talk about it in a positive way? I'd be like, something small, even like I overspent on lunch, but I know for next time, I'm going to do this type of restaurant versus that. Or like, I wanted iced coffee, so I went to 7-Eleven versus Starbucks. Simple things. And it's putting it out there once where people will be like, at first where it's awkward, but you just stand through the awkward because on the other side is what you want. And instead of bottling that up, but it's like you just take these stories from when you grow up. I mean, I had the same thing when I was growing up. Money was hard. It's not enough. You only could buy things on holidays and different things. But yet they're like, oh, life is going to give you everything of this dream world. But the only way you're going to do it is if you get there and if you follow that vision. And the typical way is you make your vision board and you have your positive affirmations, and that stuff really helps. But what doesn't help is if you don't follow it and look into it and sing it every day or write it down and really find the way of getting it happened, or, just flowing into it. Because on the other side of money fears is a business that you want, is the items that you want, or that vacation as a business owner that you can take without feeling guilty. I mean, I take downtime. I don't feel guilty. I have my terms with my clients that on off times, I don't feel guilty. I have a separate phone for my business than my personal, so that I can have my life separate. And I look at it during business hours. There's times, like everything, we always cheat, but I've set rules and boundaries so that, it works on my terms. I could have time with my kids, time for myself, and, anything else that may come up.
And that's really important to touch on, because that's something they don't, all the things that they don't talk about, right? It's like, we are so ingrained to do the hustle, 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 and then we burn out. And it's like, oh yeah, by the way, you need to implement some boundaries along the way. Like, just maybe don't burn yourself out along the way.
Boundaries are hard. Boundaries are hard because you're not used to them. I mean, I know when I started, like, it would drain me at first. It would feel good that I set them, but it would drain me, and then making sure that how people respond to them too, is a big thing. And money fears and business and all of this taboo stuff, what will set you apart is actually just taking that first step.
Mhm. All right. So I want to talk about, you've been in business now for well over a decade.
Mm.
And so I'd like to ask you, so what were some trials you had to go through in creating this business and getting it to where it is at now?
Making the mistakes, making my own mistakes, and taking the mistakes and learning from them and finding a different way. Another big thing was mastering the skills myself. When I first started my business, I used to spend definitely more than I make. And then you're probably like, oh, Margo, you're an accountant. How did you do that? Because I didn't know how to do anything. And a lot of the typical ways is to do things yourself. And a lot of ways I did do that. But when I started to master the skills myself and then to outsource it, that's when things really started to move. So for instance, marketing, hiring other bookkeepers and accountants, that's really the lessons that I had to learn, was that I would just hire somebody to do things, but unless I knew what I wanted myself, would it really work? So if something internally now drops, it's my fault on my process, where I take full responsibility. And that's actually the last part to the recipe as well, is as a business owner, it's taking responsibility for everything that happens. And it's not playing the victim mentality of like, oh my God, this happened to me. Oh my God, this happened to me. I can't get in touch with this person. My accountant screwed up, and like always finding excuses and not finding reasons of different ways to do things. When you stick to excuses versus reasons of being able to move forward, it's a very big difference. So my biggest learning curve was making the mistakes, but then mastering it myself so that it enforced my vision and it strengthened my vision, and that I have the business that I love to wake up to each and every day.
Mm, mm, that. I love that. And that's really important because I think what we've gotten accustomed to right now, and you see this a lot, is the highlight reel. And
Mm,
we think that, and this is, I can only ever speak from personal experience. This is something I encountered a lot when I first started. And I see this happening a lot. So, and this is going to deal with money. So we see the six-figure coaches. I just brought in $100,000 in my business, but
mm.
we don't talk about
How much they actually
all
make?
the people. Well, how did you make it? But all the people you had to pay. And
Right.
so, huh?
How much did you profit?
Yeah, exactly. Right. So you made $100,000, but how much did you actually bring in? And so what I see so often happening, and what I fell into in the beginning too, is, oh my God, like, what am I not doing that's getting there? And then, like you said, it's like taking that responsibility as well, because it's like, okay, well, if I wasn't successful, then obviously it's because I didn't have a system, or I didn't have the marketing, or I didn't have this. And it's like, no, dude, like, why? What is it that maybe what space do you need to show up in to make this happen? Like, we don't emphasize the responsibility aspect of enough. But I also think on the other end of it, it's like we have to start recognizing when we are falling victim to somebody else's messaging
Mhm.
that may not necessarily be real, legitimate messaging. Like, take that with a grain of salt.
That is huge. That is huge what you just said. I mean, that's really where my mistakes were. Like, I would take what people said as like the Bible or like the gold standard of things, because they would be getting more hits, they would be getting more likes, all those things that we think that are really important. And then I would be like, I'm an accountant. How come I can't do that? And I'm like, I have logic, I know numbers, but what happens is that it's all the things that are in between that people don't talk about, and that's what really sets it apart.
Exactly. I like also that you touch base on learning to do the things first and then knowing them. That was when when we got on here, and you're like, you do the podcast, you edit the podcast too. um One thing that I've been really stringent about, and I think for me, it's also made my journey that much longer, not in a bad way, in a good way.
Mhm.
I've done a lot of like trial and error within myself, is learning a lot of the foundational stuff first.
Yes.
And actually, I have a really interesting reason. It's not only because, this is going to sound so bad, but I don't even care. It's not even just that, like, I like to learn things. It's so that nobody can ever screw me over when I start hiring people. And someone's like, what the hell does that mean? I'm like, because I know what I want and I know how to do the job. And it's like, you can't come in here and tell me that you got to do all this stuff when I know for a fact you only need to do all that stuff. Like, da 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 da. And I think that's important. I think it's important to figure out, like, to first go do the thing, like, at least learn the background part of it, at least be able to have some kind of competency in it, so that when you do, then you can start figuring out, okay, well, what do I actually want to invest in? Like, I
So,
realized pretty
so I'm
quickly
gonna,
I was willing to invest in graphics. Like,
so you know what? I want to cut you off, and I want to tell you that, because remember how you said how the person could come in and be like, I need to do all of that, and you really need to do all of this. The fact of mastering that process, look how much money that just saved you, where somebody could have just come in and billed you thousands of dollars or hundreds of dollars that you didn't need. And it's also going to set you back in business where you would have lost all that time. That's
mhm.
where mastering the process yourself and writing it down, and even videos is of what you do so that the person has a reference, is just so key.
Well, it's interesting. Somebody, I don't remember who told me, but they're like, why are you doing all that right now? Like, that's something you can do later on. It's like, no, man, like, this is the foundation of your business. And it's like, I would rather know now what it is that what I need to know right now, and what I
Mhm.
need to do, and then build that in. And then, because I think the worst thing you can do in business is figure out what you should have been doing way down the road when you should have been doing it a long time ago.
So I'm going to tell you, I have a process for that. Now it's called a blueprint. When a client signs on with us, or like a mapping session, um, we look at everything so that we know what we're going to do once they enter in retainer services with us, so that the client is getting the full value of the money. Because if I didn't figure out what's going on before, then I'm not as successful every single month. And I'm feeling those issues every single time. So if I don't take that time at the beginning to set the stage for the work, I'm not going to be as successful. It's something even as creating the folders, getting the passwords, making sure their goals are aligned with ours and what they want and when, setting our calendar reminders so that I'm walking into a setting that is successful and not a disaster that the client is not going to want from us.
Incredibly important. Incredibly important. So, yeah, you guys start understanding what it is that you need. Start like taking a look at the back end. And I'll touch base on that one more time. That was something again that I was really stringent about in the beginning. People are like, well, why are you so worried about processes? Like, go out there and make money. And I'm like, okay, that's cool. Let's talk about why a process is really important when you want to go make money. Like, what happens when you bring on a client? What do you need? An onboarding process. Like,
Yeah, it's like, how are you going to take money from them? Are you going to have them sign paperwork? Are you going to have a contract? Are you going to have terms? Are they going to have responsibilities? What happens is emergencies outside of your process, so that the communication is clear on who's responsible for what, and that there's no confusion on that. When you have all that written down and that it's sent over, like, I'll tell you in terms of processes. A client of ours asked for more work, and I did it through an email. And we all know how heavy we are in email every single day. So I took that process out of email and I put it into HelloSign so that they can electronically sign, and it goes into their file so that any tweaks that they have, it's always there for record keeping. And things like that are just so key. And it made a big difference because now I have that template for the future. If anything comes up, that I can just use it.
And before I go into the next part, I think this is really important because this is where we talk about, we can bring in the money aspect of it.
Yeah.
And so one thing when we're talking about processes that I think is really important because I see this happening a lot with coaches, there's not clear communication or a clear process of what are the terms around how you're not only collecting the money, but how they're going to pay you. And what happens is the client ends up ghosting out on the money and there's a miscommunication. So if you don't know the process is like having an agreement, having a contract with your clients and stuff, you're liable to lose a ton of money and you kind of have to eat. You just have to eat that. And now you don't know, right? Like you don't know how you're going to recoup the money, or better yet, how are you going to prevent that from happening all over again? So I love that you talk about processes because I've been process heavy. Like, I've been process centric since I started my business. Like, I had coaches, to the detriment of coaches, going, why are you so focused on the back end of it? And I'm like, because you can't have a front end if you don't have a flipping back end. Like, what are you doing? What are you
Right.
doing?
That's like the big, like, I have 3 parts in my course where that's the seeding stage, seeding, growth, and takeoff. And that's the seeding stage. And it's so key. You can't get the growth without the seeds. It's like a plant. The plant doesn't grow without water. It's the same thing in business. Or it's like they say, like, the mama bear needs her oxygen. She has to take care of herself. It's all the same thing. It's just what you want to recognize of what you need. It's all when you're ready to really see that it's so important. And if you don't take care of your money is not going to take care of you. So if you're not responsible to know when the money comes in, that's the exact reason of why you don't have money to pay bills or your bills are late. You don't ever feel like that? You can't worry about it after, because after, if somebody already got the service, you're not going to get paid. It's not the best time to negotiate your fees and those types of things. And if you worry about it after, also, you're not taking care of your money. You can't expect it to take care of you.
Mm. All right, so we've got a few more minutes. So I want to talk about something that you touched base on, something you were passionate about. So setbacks of being a woman in business and the fear and how that fear held you back. So touch base a little bit on what you mean when you talk about the setbacks of being a woman in business, because I know there's always that double-edged sword that women come with when we come into business, because there's like no good way to be a woman in business sometimes, I swear. But yeah, tell us a little bit about how that fear initially held you back in the beginning.
So I also grew up, that's really where it began. I grew up in the Sephardic community where everything was based around the man. And it's just the way it was, and I accepted that. And then slowly, as I evolved in my career, I saw that women were stepping up. But anytime something would happen, it would always be against a man, against a man, against a man. And they would have different ways of doing things, or they would respond to me in such a way that I'm going to call it now more bullying, because, it wasn't giving me the respect that I deserved as a professional. It would just be like in a demanding way that it was like just expected and nothing else. A lot of my culture was around it. And I'm going to say, previously, it's just something that I accepted. And as a woman, constantly, I would have to work through that first before ever making a step. And I'm going to go back into my divorce a little bit here and be a little bit honest. It was something that was like untalked about between us. And once I stepped out of that, it became something that was not supported. And I was not doing it because I wanted to be supported, but for no fault others than the way we grew up, that was just kind of something of how we started to move in life. And once that was not acceptable to me, I just kept making steps that way. And you would work through anger and fear to get on the side of that. And you're touching on people that are really close to you. And you're touching on people that may not be there because you want to do those steps, and or believe in you because you're doing things that are out of the box. And being a woman, I'll tell you, like, you get stuff done. You're a woman, you're kind of like a woman in like a man's world, or like you're kind of acting like a woman in like a man's world and the way you operate. But at the end of the day, it is a man's world. So it's like you have to meet the person where they're at to then get what you want. But if you kind of accept that's what's going to happen, but you have like your own ways of tweaking and tolerating that to get where you want, then you're going to be successful. But you kind of have to accept it first and not fight it. And that was my thing too, is that I wasn't accepting it. I was almost not intentionally fighting it. I was like unintentionally fighting it because I was like, this is not fair. This is not fair. But that wasn't getting me anywhere. That wasn't serving me. But once I accepted it and found my ways of getting through to the people and that it was my voice, it all started to flow together.
Mm. I'm glad you touched base on that, because it's very much, yes, a man's world. And my message is, and I don't say that like, yeah, it's always, it's us. Oh, it's a man's world, so we have to submit. Like, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is there's power, like there's power in what you're here to do. And I think the other confusion with that is that, well, if it's a man's world, we have to show up as a man, and that's not the case. The power lies in you being a woman. That is the power. Like, that's the power. And the sooner you recognize that you have that power, the easier it becomes. Because I've worked in a man's world for a very long time, and I didn't fight it, but I like became the traditional like super masculine woman. And I worked better with men and da 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 da. And it was just because we have become so conditioned that that's the way you're supposed to do business. That was
Yeah.
a comfort zone for me. And so stepping into the feminine aspect of what I do in business and how I am was hard. But like you said, it's like once we start recognizing what we're here to do and who we are as people, that's where the game changes. Because it's like, I think it comes as like, it's no longer like, oh, I'm showing up to do business as a woman. I'm showing up to do business as myself. Like, I am in business as myself. Like, whether I'm a woman or a man, this is where the power lies. Oh my gosh. And it's almost the end of this. Like, I look up and it's like, oh my gosh, it's already past. All right. So here is my, one of my favorite questions. And I never tell anybody when I ask this question. I kind of told you a little bit, but I never tell anybody usually. And it's, if someone were to come up to you, let's say you were speaking or someone's coming up to you at the end of the speaking event, and they ask you, oh my gosh, this is amazing. I very much resonate with your journey. What are 3 key pieces of advice you can give me moving forward? What would those be?
So the first one is follow your heart. And follow your heart is to step into your passion. And the second part is if there's something in your way or whatever is in your way, get support on it. Because the only way that you're going to move into step 3 to get into that power is that if you have that support. And that's the way it worked out for me. My tips are not going to be about making more money. My tips are going to help you be a more powerful being, because the way you show up to the world, you could accomplish anything. And when you do those 3 things and you step on the other side of the fear, you're going to be able to get whatever you want. And you believe in yourself, you believe in your own power. You don't really need anything else. You don't need tax tips. You don't need all these different things, because the information just flows. And you're probably like, Margo, that sounds all great. What's the real deal? That is the real deal. You show up who you are, authentic, break it down that way. And it really just happens, and it's natural. It's not draining. And, you get the support. Once you get the support, you have that big goal, think double. Take that big goal, make it double, make it even triple, and then work backwards that way. Because if you were to tell me now that I bought my own house, which I just did, I think we're in the house now about 3 weeks, I would never, ever, ever have thought that I can do it. And I dipped into my network and I figured out a way, and I dipped into resources. So whatever your vision is on that fear, get the support, and whatever your goal is, triple it. And you're like, that's crazy, but just do it and take that first step.
I love that you say that, because oh god, there's ladybug. Because that's really like the key to everything. They don't tell you that enough, but if you get quiet and you go within and you figure out what it is you're here for and what it is that you want to do, you will save yourself so much time, so much strife. If I had gotten more in touch with myself a long time ago, I would have saved myself a lot more money. I would have saved myself so much money.
That is the key. There's journaling, there's yoga. I mean, I have a hammock outside, you meditate, there's dancing, there's singing, there's running, there's so many different things to get in touch with yourself. When you get in touch with yourself, that's the key. It's not the sponsored ads. It's getting in touch with yourself and liking to spend time with yourself. Have fun with yourself and make dates with yourself. That's the key.
And I'll say this, I'll add this, and then I'm gonna let you tell everybody about the other key that's important about why it's important to not only figure yourself out. So we talk a lot about finding your people, right? This is why this is so important. You will find your people when you find yourself. You will find your people when you find
They just come.
Yeah. They love what you say. And they're just like, oh my God, where have you been? Every time that I connect further into myself and then I speak from that point, I will literally have people pop and go, where the hell have you been? Like, I just all of a sudden you just came out of nowhere. I'm like, yeah, look at me right here. All right. So tell everybody a little bit about where they can find you. Please tell them about your course. You guys, Margo has a phenomenal course coming up. I highly recommend it. Who is working at financial stuff. Yeah, I know you got stuff coming up.
So I'm Margo Masri. You can find me on any of the social media, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. I'm a lot of fun to follow, so I look forward to having you on my social media. And my course, if you're interested, I shared the link for you to find out more information. It's the 10-part process that I implement with my one-on-one clients. It talks about the seeding, growth, and takeoff stage. Right now for October, I'm giving an incredible special, 50 off. So I would love for you guys to take advantage of that discount. And also on social media, you'll find all my videos and tips. And in the course as well, I just wanted to share, I talk about all the corporation stuff so that all the taboo stuff that we talked about and the money fears, you're going to have that in there and support with myself.
So you guys, please make sure to click the links in the bio. Please connect with her. And thank you guys so much for being here on this last live episode for a while. Who knows, maybe one day I'll take these back up. But for right now, we're on the TV show. So you guys, please make sure to check out www.tufwoman.com as well to find out more about the show, what's going on, how is the company beginning to shift. And thank you guys so much for being here. For everybody that came here, if you catch us on the replay, #replay, make sure you share this out. I think everybody needs to probably hear this conversation. Thank you, Margo, for being here. I appreciate it. I love that you were like my last guest for a while, like on this platform. Like, I love it. It's great. So thank you guys so much. I will see you guys around the corner. All right.